You are about to discover 3 biblical truths that completely change what God's silence actually means. Not reassurance, not keep trusting. 3 things from Scripture that explain what is actually happening in the seasons when heaven feels closed. And the third truth will change the way you read every silent season you have ever walked through. Most believers interpret God's silence the same way, as distance, as disapproval, as evidence that the prayer was not strong enough or the faith was not real enough. But that interpretation is the one that quietly destroys people because it is measuring God's presence by the wrong instrument. Scripture does not measure God's presence by sound. And the first truth begins in the most silent 3 days in the history of the world. The tomb was sealed. The stone was in place. The disciples were behind locked doors. For 3 days, heaven was completely silent. No angel, no vision, no word. If you had been there, if you had watched the crucifixion, seen where they laid him, heard the stone roll shut, every piece of evidence would have told you the story was over. But Sunday morning was already being prepared inside the silence of Friday. The resurrection did not happen in spite of the 3 days. It happened through them. This is the first truth. God's silence is not his absence. It is often his most concentrated activity. He who watches over you will not slumber. Psalm 121 verse 3. He was not resting while the tomb was sealed. He was working where no one could see, and that is exactly what he does in the silent seasons of your life. But there is something even more specific happening, something that has almost nothing to do with the answer you are waiting for. Joseph spent years in a prison where no one came with a word from God. No dream, no vision, no sign. Just the weight of days that looked identical and the slow, quiet question of whether any of it still meant something. And it was in that silence, not after it, that Joseph was being built. The patience to govern without panic, the wisdom to interpret what others could not, the character to carry power without being broken by it. None of those things form in comfort. They form in exactly the kind of waiting that feels most like abandonment. The Lord was with Joseph. Genesis 39:21. The text says it 3 times. In the pit, in the house, in the prison. Not once did Joseph feel it. Not once did the silence lift. And yet, 3 times the same declaration. God was with him in every place it felt like he was not. Here's the question that changes everything. What if the silence in your life right now is not the absence of God's work, but the exact location of it? What if he is forming something in you that the answer, arriving too soon, would actually prevent from being finished? And this leads to the deepest truth, the one most Christians never hear about: why God sometimes chooses silence over speech. Elijah had just called fire from heaven, 850 false prophets, 1 prayer, the sky split open. And then one threatening letter arrived and he ran into the wilderness begging God to let him die. God did not respond with fire this time. He sent bread and water. And then he told Elijah to stand on a mountain. A wind so violent it split the rocks apart. Then an earthquake. Then fire. And God was in none of them. And after the fire, a still small voice. 1 Kings 19:12. After all of it, a whisper. This is what most people miss about that story. The wind, the earthquake, the fire, those were not God trying and failing to speak. They were God demonstrating that his most intimate voice does not travel through the dramatic. It travels through stillness. The seasons when God seems most silent are sometimes the seasons when he is most ready to speak, but only to a heart quiet enough to receive it. The silence is not a verdict on your faith. It is an invitation to a kind of nearness that noise has always made impossible. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Not pray louder, not figure it out. Be still. He is not preparing to arrive. He is already there, waiting for the room to go quiet enough for you to notice. 3 things to do the next time God feels silent. First, refuse the wrong interpretation. The moment silence begins to feel like rejection, name it for what it is: a feeling, not a fact. The interpretation you choose will determine what the silence does to you. Second, ask a different question. Instead of when will this end, ask what is being built in me that this silence is producing. Joseph's patience, Elijah's intimacy, the silence is not empty. It's a workshop. Third, go quiet before you speak. Before your next prayer, sit in silence for 60 seconds. Not to feel something, to practice the posture God invited Elijah into, because stillness is not giving up. It's positioning yourself to hear what the noise has been covering. 3 things. God's silence is not his absence. It is his activity. His silence is not punishment. It is preparation. His silence is not a wall. It is where he draws closest. The resurrection was prepared in a sealed tomb. Joseph's destiny was shaped in a forgotten prison. Elijah's most intimate encounter with God came in the stillness after the fire. The silence you are in right now is not the end of your story. It may be its most important chapter. God has not gone quiet because he stopped caring. He's gone quiet because he's close enough that he no longer needs to shout. And the silence is the proof. When have you experienced God's silence? And what did you discover on the other side of it? Leave your story in the comments. I read every one. There's a video right here on 3 lies the enemy uses against you during seasons exactly like this. Watch it next. He is not far. He never was.